Hello and welcome to the 495. I'm your host, Doug Sparks, Editor-in-Chief of Merrimack Valley Magazine, here with my gloves and my Lysol, a little bit more color-coordinated this week. I have a little bit of kind of a gray here and then the blue gloves.
The orange and blue worked last week, I thought.
It worked for me.
Yeah.
Maybe not for everyone, though. I could pull that sort of thing off.
By the way, you've been double disinfected because I just went through and sprayed the whole place before you came in.
Can't do it enough. But
Can't do it enough.
This is more, I think my wife is out there somewhere sitting in a parking lot with the baby trying to get her to sleep, and maybe she's listening to the show. And this is more just to show her that I have fulfilled my promise for the second week in a row.
Does the drive put the baby to sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it puts the baby to sleep, and on top of that, it puts a toddler to sleep, which
nice.
is really key because she hates sleep like you wouldn't believe. And it's one of the only ways we can get her a nap is to just drive her out. So what we've been doing is we'll just drive out somewhere in the middle of the day and like find a waterfall or a park. But the problem is those parks are now starting to get really busy.
Yeah.
So I went to a local park in Chelmsford that I go to, which is normally there's nobody there. You couldn't find a parking space.
Yep.
I'm not going to say where it was. I don't want anyone else to go there. So then I ended up, I think I went to the high school. I went to a school and just sat there and listened to an audiobook and let them sleep and gave Mama a chance to get some work done at home while I edited on my laptop getting ready for the May issue.
When my firstborn was young, and this is 24 years ago now, she had a regular schedule. She'd start screaming about 5 o'clock. I'd get home at 5:30. She'd already be packed in the car seat. I'd just walk in the door, pick up the car seat, put her in the car, and go drive, and we'd listen to the Red Sox game, and I'd read the Globe at that point.
Yeah.
It was 24 years ago. So
These things you got to do.
Yep.
So my guest this week is named Scott Plath, and a lot of you know him through the magazine. He's been a columnist for years, or you know him as one of the co-owners of Moonstones and Cobblestones. Scott, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Doug. Yes.
So you are in the epicenter of this whole pandemic right now. You're one of the people really having to, your whole life and your business and everything is being changed by this. What's going on?
The whole thing is quite surreal. What's going on? I had a really good friend of mine say a week ago, I've never been so inspired to work so hard for so little. And he captured the moment, and I know the little really means no personal reward. And he was joking, but actually we're really working for a lot right now.
Yeah.
We're working to save our lives on a macro level, and on a personal macro level, working to save our businesses. We're working to protect our employees, not just for the future earnings and job creation, or rehiring, but we've got people throughout our industry and right within my own organization who are calling saying they can't buy groceries. Because our industry is wrought with people who are who live paycheck to paycheck and don't make a ton of money. So there's a lot to work for right now, and I think what makes the whole thing. I feel like I went really dark really quick, Doug.
It's all right. Well, sometimes you have to go dark because it's the nature of the world, and we have to face these things. It's not going to last forever. Right?
Yeah.
And you have to face. You have to look these things head on, right? And deal with them. So, what are you doing with the employees? Do you have are you doing any crowdsourcing campaigns or anything? How are you helping the employees during this time?
Well, yes, we do have a crowdsourcing campaign on there. It's on our websites. We've asked people to make direct donations to support our staff, and we have also. Offered 50% of gift certificates sales at this time will be earmarked directly for staff in need. But to be honest with you, it's really 100% because we're not making any money. We're doing 5% of our normal business, if that.
Yeah.
So it's just a fund. It's just a fund to help. And the other thing we're doing, and when I say we, I really mean Kathy, my wife and partner, who spends almost every waking hour researching what the alternatives are in the changing landscape every day of what the state is doing and what the government is doing and how to make that all work in conjunction with all of the, caveats that are attached to these different initiatives, and so she spends a lot of time trying to figure out how we can best support our staff through programs and assistance in the short term.
Are you happy with the government response, and what is the current state?
I could argue either side. I don't live in a dark place. I wake up every day and I hit the ground running because that's who I am in life. So I usually spin the positive, but also when your back is against the wall and there's so much uncertainty and so much desperation, you go into fight mode. So I could make the argument either way, Doug. There's a lot of great things being bantered about out there. There's a lot of money being thrown at this thing. It's kind of amazing. Another friend of mine who owns multiple restaurants provided me with a number yesterday. He said that we have already spent as much money on coronavirus response as we did on the 14-year war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that is just mind-boggling to me. So I mean, you can't argue with $2.4 trillion, $2.2 trillion, but there needs to be more. I mean, we need to make vendors whole. Our vendors and our landlords can't get paid, and guess what? They need to get paid. But right now, we're holding on for ourselves. It's easy to help others when you're strong, but when you have no money coming in and you don't know what the future looks like, and April 4th becomes May 4th, which will probably become June 4th. How do we aim? What's the goal?
Right.
With so much.
Sure. Right when this whole thing started, you were planning on opening a restaurant in Nashua, correct?
Yeah.
Where do things?
Right.
And I think you're even joking that you're somehow responsible for this whole thing, because when you open restaurants, someone was joking on Facebook. I don't know if it was you or whoever does your social media marketing, that interesting times always seem to occur when you open a new venture.
My uncle, who has been a business mentor and a great friend for my entire life, pointed out that we opened Cobblestones at the very bottom of the economy in 1994. We opened Moonstones months before the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, and we signed the lease for Stone Social in Nashua a month or so prior to this crisis.
Wow.
So I am as good an economic indicator of a downturn as yeah.
Sure. So what is going on in Nashua? Where do things stand?
Well, we're obligated. The build out is almost complete. The menus are complete. It's interesting that the concept was created for the direction that our industry is headed, because there was already some writing on the wall about the changing habits, changing dining habits in society, and a lot of more takeout and delivery, and we have need for more social spaces for people to congregate, because everybody's got their heads down on computers, and so we really created a concept over the last 2 or 3 years that was heading in the direction of the industry, and then by virtue of the nature of this thing, it's kind of built for this thing, in a slightly different way. And so we're going to open, when we have permission. It's just, we've been hiring, but now I've got a bunch of employees at the current 2 restaurants. Again, I talk about this, what is our goal? What's the end point? How is society going to change and react to this crisis? Will they come back in full force and want us to be back to our normal operations, or are they going to be hesitant? Are there going to be laws that restrict how many people we can seat? Are people going to be shy about congregating? The whole thing, societally, how's it going to change? So we might have employees that need work that we can't put back to work when we open our existing restaurants, that we might be able to move to the Nashua location, although it's a much smaller environment. But for this one, it's supposed to be a beta site for future restaurants. We thought we had figured out, found the magic pill for restaurant future, and we were very excited. And you know what? I got to tell you, I'm still a little excited. It's just way down below many other more urgent priorities.
Sure. So can you tell me anything about the menu and what that location is going to be like?
The menu is really, I struggle every time I get asked that question for all the times we've spent trying to create an elevator pitch for me. I do have something that I could read, but I'd have to find it, and that would be boring. The description is sort of a Cobblestones and Moonstones, Cobblestones being a comfort American concept in Lowell, and Moonstones being more of a global, exciting, dynamic menu. In Moonstones, if those two restaurants got together and had a baby, what would that baby look like? It would be more casual. It would be faster, but it would still be chef-driven with really excellent culinary. But how do you apply excellent culinary in a more casual environment at a more affordable price? It's still going to be craft-driven, but with a little bit more emphasis on socialization and drink and hanging out, more casual than the previous two restaurants.
Yeah. So as far as the menus at Cobblestones and Moonstones and your takeout menu, for people who haven't ordered takeout from you, how has the pandemic affected what you're offering?
Well, the first answer is it's smaller, and we needed to be smaller anyway. And again, Stone Social menu is a smaller version of the other two. What we decided to do, really from a strategic perspective, was, and with all of the uncertainty and how this will play out, to go is a small percentage of our business previously, less than 10%. But we wanted it to grow. So what we decided to do going forward, driven by this crisis, was to take what travels best from both restaurants, what will taste just as delicious 15 minutes later when you get it home as it would if you were sitting in our restaurants, and take the best from both restaurants, combine them under one roof, because the volume, wouldn't warrant large staffs and opening two buildings. So Moonstones is sort of our center of operations at the moment, but we've taken Cobblestone's 25-year chicken marsala recipe and their addictive buffalo tenders and put them with, Moonstone's slow-braised Korean short ribs and our pork fried rice and vegetarian fried rice, and really comfort foods that travel well, the best of both menus combined on a smaller page.
Yeah, and you're offering daily specials, right? I think I saw something that people should call and find out. You may have something on any given day that might not be on the regular menu, and you also these kind of family-sized meals.
Yeah, that is correct. Thank you. We've created that would be another one of the criteria for the menu, that it can be family style. So everything now that we offer, well, not everything, but most of the menu is feeds 2 to 4 folks. And we let the chef run weekly specials, and he can change it at any time. We're still trying to keep things somewhat fun and challenging and interesting. I think that's what we do as an industry. We're not just food and beverage. We're entertainment. We're hospitality. We create comfort and care for folks. So I think we told, and it's hard to keep the employees motivated. Some just want to get out of the house, but they're still dealing with kids out of school, and can I touch that without worrying about, virus being on it? So,
right.
So yeah, we've created an opportunity for him to have a blank canvas, and any time that they want to run a certain special, I think the last few days it was our korma meatballs over basmati rice, but we've also done the pasta bolognese in the past. Today they're doing the roast con pollo, because our 6-year sous chef is from Central America, and he just loves Spanish-inspired cuisine and is an amazing cook. So again, another comfort-based, something that feels good and is super tasty. So today a roast con pollo starts for them, which is a rice and chicken dish for those folks who don't speak a roast con pollo.
What about this possibility that there's going to be a law that's going to allow you to deliver alcohol? Are you tracking this? Is this going to affect you at all? Are you planning for this?
So we heard the rumor that it might pass in Massachusetts. I didn't really believe it because of Massachusetts history, but we prepared anyway and told our folks to start putting together a beer and wine menu, and sure enough, I believe it passed yesterday.
Okay.
And our folks yesterday submitted a sample menu, and my daughter Tara, who's home from London, has really been helping us drive a lot of initiatives. She came home just in time to enjoy this period of American history.
Sure.
And she's writing a menu. We will be delivering beer and wine and running specials with beer and wine and in conjunction with the food beginning tomorrow, and we'll see how creative we can get with it. So,
What about
we're very excited for that opportunity, yes.
Are you looking at cocktails and drinks like that as well? Is that a possibility?
We did not get permission to do liquor. I don't see it as being a possibility. I think it took this horrific crisis for the State House of Massachusetts to loosen the reins on alcohol service. We're generally only trusted so far in this state. We can't do happy hours and so on and so forth. But they did give us permission for this, and we are grateful for that. Don't get me wrong. But no alcohol. No, it has to be in the original package. It's limited per ounces per person. There's some stipulations that go with it, but we're going to run 2-for-1 bottles of wine. Look, it's not going to make a huge difference in our in our cash flow. It will make some difference. It's not going to save us, but what it really allows us to do is add a little creativity while letting the guest not have to make 2 stops. I heard an interesting thing earlier today that alcohol sales are up in liquor stores the same percentage or very close to the same percentage as what food sales from full-service restaurants have dropped. I think full-service restaurants across the country have dropped 75% in revenue, and liquor stores are up 80%. So, now folks can come to us and get dinner for the family for a night or two, and they can also get a couple bottles of wine or a 6-pack of beer and not have to make a second stop and get out of the car a second time.
So you may have said this, and maybe I missed it, but do you have a sense of when this goes into effect? Is it going to be this week? Can I call and...
I believe it's in effect. If it's not in effect today, it's in effect tomorrow, but it passed yesterday.
Okay.
I do not want to convey incorrect information, so I say to everybody, don't quote me on that one. But
all right.
But I know people are already doing it, and I think people are already doing it, so I would say with relative confidence it is now in effect. Restaurants can sell beer and wine to go. Jump online and find out what the parameters are. You obviously have to be a liquor license holder already and be in good standing and so on and so forth.
What's the best first step for people ordering takeout? Is it to go to the website or is it to give you a call?
We like them to go to the website. All the questions on the menu can be answered on the website just about. The phones are off the hook, to be honest with you, but we don't really have enough cash flow to open up other phone lines and have other people standing there to answer the phone. So the less we can do by phone, the better, just to keep things most efficient. And yes, either one of our websites will bring you to the current menu. There are 3 options to order delivery through DoorDash or Grubhub, but we are urging you to take the drive to our building. We're offering a 10% discount for folks who choose to pick up. We deliver the food right to your car, put it in the back seat of the trunk, wherever you prefer. That's just less handling. Our folks are following all best practices, and so you'll get the food that much warmer directly from our kitchen to your car, and save 10% if you choose to get out, get some fresh air, and drive down to Moonstones. Right now it's only Moonstones right off 495 and Route 3 in Chelmsford that is providing cooked meals.
Okay. So one thing, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, if you don't mind, because aside from being a restaurateur, you're also a writer, you're a columnist. When did you start working for Merrimack Valley Magazine?
I think right after Merrimack Valley Magazine launched.
You're one of the originals.
Yeah, I am one of the originals. It's kind of funny to say that, but my Kathy bought the magazine as soon as it came. I call her Curious Kathy, by the way. My wife is an endless seeker of information. It's amazing trying to keep up with her, which I can't come close to, but I try a little bit. And she loves the magazine, fell in love. She said, "What a beautiful magazine! We really need this. It's well done." And in the course of that conversation, she goes, "You should write for this magazine. You're such a great writer. You should reach out and write for this magazine." So I did. I reached reached out to Glenn, and I hadn't met Glenn yet, and we had a conversation. He said, submit something, and I'm sure it wasn't very good, but it must have had something that caught his eye. And he said, we'll publish something, and then we'll try again. And that turned, I think, we're 11 years later or something like that.
Does it feel strange putting yourself out there and kind of revealing the inner workings of your mind while also being a business person?
It should. I think it should. It doesn't because because I've never really been one to think long and hard about what I do, and I should. It's got me in a lot of trouble through the years, Doug. But I write it, and my attitude is, this is who I am, and this is what I'm thinking, and you know what? Listen, I tick some people off. I get a lot of people who disagree with my point of view, and that's okay.
Yeah. Do you think you've ever written columns that have made people not go to the restaurant? Do you think that's happened?
I'm sure, but you know what? Yeah, I'm sure that's true. But at the end of the day, God, shame on people, or shame on society. Like that we've gotten to that point. I mean, that's just, I think, a statement about our whole political climate. Like, we can't just disagree and still shake hands and say, you know what, you had a good point. Well, you had a good point. I'm going to think more about your point. We're not there anymore. We're just like, I'm going to kill you. Your point sucks. And so if that's the way people want to live their life, I know I'm a pretty good guy. I mean well. I care about people. And if somebody thinks, politically they don't agree with my point of view, and I'm a snowflake, as one guy called me, because I care about folks' feelings, and you don't want to eat my food, my delicious food that my chefs are amazing at creating, because you don't like my political perspective, I'll deal without selling that dinner.
Now, on the other side, do you have any particular columns that have really either stuck with you as your favorites, or that you hear about over and over again, and people always say, "Oh, remember the time you wrote about such and such"?
Wow. You know what? There are a lot of columns out there that I go back and look at and like or dislike. I think the one that perpetually lives in my mind, a couple of them actually. I wrote about a homeless person who lived next door to Cobblestones. Mm-hmm. And he really represented the battle between, being a good human and being a business person, because I knew him sleeping on the steps next door to a restaurant was not good for business. But at the same time, he was homeless, and so the hell with me and my business. This guy doesn't have a home. So I dealt with that for a long time. We offered him food, and my employees tried to be compassionate at times, but he wasn't really. That column was meant a lot to me, and ultimately we had to make a decision that he was really bad for a lot more people than just me and my business, and so we tried to get him help through the Lowell Police Department. That one resonates, and another one I wrote years ago about a young woman who complained, I think she was 12 or 13 at the time, and she complained that that the images on our bathroom doors at Moonstones that represented female and male should be that we made the female too feminine and the male too masculine, and that puts women in a lesser box. And I don't, a lot of people feel a lot differently about this whole subject, but I thought it was, being a father of 3 daughters, I felt like it was so conscientious for this young woman, so young, to express an opinion that was looking out for others and seeking a fairer view of women in society, and I was really touched by that. So I wrote a column about the interaction that she had with my daughter, who did the artwork, and they had a real nice back and forth of understanding and explanation, and it really turned into a nice little relationship.
Very cool. So do you know what you're working on for May? Are you writing right now in the face of everything that's going on?
I hadn't been. I was waiting to hear from Glenn that you guys were going to produce a magazine.
Oh, you don't have to wait to hear from him. There's going to be a May issue. We're working on it right now. We're in the thick of things.
Well, guess what? It's no different than it ever is. I usually put something together, right before deadline, and then I'm usually late, and Glenn yells at me. And so, I have to pick something, and I have to sit down and write it, because right now subject matter is raw. I mean, like, what should I write about?
Sure. You do have a little bit of a reputation at the magazine for your observance or non-observance of deadlines.
Oh, deadlines? Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, don't feel like you're the Lone Ranger. I have that reputation well outside the magazine.
Okay. So let's go back before the writing career. How'd you get into a restaurant? How'd you get into the food industry?
Oh, I was a paper boy in New York at age 12, and the guy with the route next to me quit, and the newspaper offered me to double my route, and I grabbed it because I was a 12-year-old with money in my pockets. And that route took me to a restaurant. They asked me if I wanted to be a busboy, and I said yes.
Do you remember the name of the restaurant?
It was called Aphrodite.
Huh.
It was a huge Greek restaurant, and I took the weekend job as a busboy, and I literally just fell in love. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, every night is a party, music and dancing and food and low lights and celebrations and pina coladas and I just like, man, this is what I want to do for a living.
Hey, so back then, was it, because I've read Anthony Bourdain and Kitchen Confidential, and the way he portrays the New York restaurant scene back in the day, however you want to define that, is things were pretty wild. Was it wild back then?
Well, it was wild through my eyes. And then I looked back. Look, there was a waiter on staff who always had a gun on his ankle, because he was he had a license to carry, and like that was the first time as a 12 or 13-year-old I was ever aware of anybody carrying a gun.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, there was plenty of late night parties. I don't know how much we've changed. I mean, we're an industry of celebration and party. And, I've changed because, damn, I can't keep my eyes open after 11 o'clock. but listen, when Anthony wrote his book, the first time I read it, I felt like I wrote it. Mm. I mean, I literally, like, if you change this scene from Italy, to another location where I was, I felt like I wrote that. I said to my wife, Anthony Bourdain wrote my book. Huh. I felt a great kinship with him.
So going back to you being a boy, you then go into high school. You're still involved in the restaurant industry? You're working through high school, or no?
I worked. I never stopped working from that first job. 12 years old. I went from busboy, dishwasher, to waiter. Then they trained me on the bar. My parents insisted that I go to college. I just wanted to keep working, making money, and work my way up through the ranks. Yeah. Which, by the way, the restaurant business is one of the few industries you can go from busboy to owner without a college degree. Mm. I don't advocate it, and when I mentioned it to my wife when my kids were thinking about going to college, she was more or less like my parents, shut your mouth, our kids are going to college, So, and she didn't say that because she would never speak that way, but. So my folks said, you got to go to college. So I said, well, then I'm going to go to college and learn more about being a restaurant owner because this is what I want to do. Yeah. And so I went to UMass Amherst to the hospitality program that is so reputed, and it was affordable. And I worked through college and then came out and went into the corporate world for a few years and said, this isn't for me. I want to have my own place. So we opened Cobblestones in '94 when I was 29.
When you're 29. Hey, out of interest, where did you work in when you're out at UMass Amherst? Any places that are still around?
Top of campus was my gig. I was a waiter at the top of campus, on campus at the campus center, and then I became a bartender up there. I think that might have been the only restaurant I worked at while I was at UMass. It was a great gig. I worked 2 or 3 nights a week, made a couple $100 a week. Just like high school. I was the only one amongst my friends who was walking around with cash in his pocket.
There you go. So in '94, you opened Cobblestones. What was that like in the beginning? Were you scared out of your mind that it wasn't going to work? Were you confident? What was going on in your head back in 1994?
Yeah, well, the same thing that you mentioned earlier, Doug. I don't stop to think often, so I wasn't scared because I'm an adrenaline junkie, and it seemed like the right thing, and it took all the money I had in the bank and every friend and relative I had to chip in to make it happen, and a chef who was willing to give pretty much his life to the venture. I met him in New York after college, and he moved up to Massachusetts to join me. And we were looking for a small deli. We had done 10 years catering together. 5 years of catering together, 10-year relationship. My father-in-law, Kathy's wife, said there's this building in downtown Lowell that's available, empty. It's a restaurant. The owner closed up shop. You want to take a look at it? And it was 12,000 square feet. It was it was a beast, but it was, he let us in there for a nickel. And also allowed us to negotiate a really favorable lease because I think he was just done. He didn't care anymore. He was wealthy. And it turned out to be a great thing for us. We got in there and we worked 18 hours a day, literally 7 days a week, to my regret at times, but I don't know if I could have done it differently. I maybe could have worked smarter, not harder, as Kathy says, but we never looked back. We opened in '94 and it did nothing but grow and grow and grow and grow. And except for 2007, 2008, every year at Cobblestones has been a growth year until 3 weeks ago.
Until 3 weeks ago. So wait, you didn't grow up around here, so why Lowell? Other than was it beyond just there being a building available? Did you know anything about this area? Did you have any family connections?
I met Kathy at UMass Amherst. She was first a dorm mate, and then she chased me.
Okay. So she has a Lowell connection? Is she from Lowell?
She's from Lowell. Her family's from Lowell, and she kidnapped me.
Okay.
Well, this is where we had our 3 children, and Cobblestones happened to be. My father-in-law knew about the building because he worked at City Hall at the time, and he knew that I was looking for something of my own to launch a business between me and Chef Eddie. So he brought the building to our attention, and like I said, it was affordable, and we thought we had the resources to make it work. So we signed on the dotted line.
What about Moonstones in Chelmsford? When did you open that, and what was your thinking at the time?
Well, for 5 years, Cobblestones, I felt it had reached its peak, for me anyway, and I had a couple of really great managers who had no growth opportunity with me in the way.
When you say reached its peak, you mean what peak as far as creativity, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, creativity. Creativity. My interest. I'm a starter. Those personality profile tests that they give. I'm really good at starting things, but I'm not really good at finishing them. Creativity-wise, these guys were running the restaurant. It was doing really well. I was becoming much less essential, it gets a little boring. And this is what I like to do. I like to create. I create restaurants for a hobby. I don't open them for a hobby because that takes a lot more than the creation of the idea.
Yeah, you write about this a lot. You write about sort of your almost like daydreams about the sort of places that might work and what would happen if we kind of did a pizza place like this. And do you have a list of all sorts of crazy restaurant ideas that you could execute in your own fantasy world if you had infinite resources?
If I had infinite resources, I could open restaurants all the if I had somebody come to me and say, I have money and I want to be the owner of lots of successful, fun restaurants, I'm their guy. I think it's interesting because the greatest thing besides the financial, the financial relationship of you have to do more sales than cost, which is not a given. You have to choose the right locations. You have to manage the finances responsibly. But at the end of the day, you also have to have people to run them. And interestingly, as we're in the middle of this crisis, one of the things that's been challenging, and the most challenging, not one of the things, the thing that has been the most challenging over the last handful of years has been to find qualified, motivated people to fill the positions in our restaurants because our labor pool has dried up in this country. Not just restaurants, by the way, but restaurants, surely the profile of the restaurant worker. So we have had a real hard time keeping our places staffed to the level of what we can create. It's a shame, but I've heard restaurants that have the slow growth and hold back because they just don't have the people to deliver on the potential.
So why is that?
Well, that's a political, hot cake, right? But
what's your tentative thoughts on the subject?
My tentative thoughts on the subject are Well, immigration is huge. Our restaurant, the restaurant industry has long been a place where entry-level folks who are looking for opportunity, non-conventional folks looking for opportunity, find it and can grow. And as I said, go from dishwasher to owner. And I think that the level of pay has also been challenging. You can make just as much money now doing a more sedentary job. I believe society has become more sedentary. You know, I guess there's so many different reasons, Doug. But why is the unemployment rate so low? You know, well, it was so low. You know, everybody who's who wants to be working is working. Where do those employees normally come from?
So I kind of pulled you off the tracks there for a little bit. You're about to tell me about Moonstones and searching for some new idea, some new concept, or something that was going to keep you excited, and then you open up this place in Chelmsford. So how was that different for people who haven't been there? What is Moonstones, and why was this venture so exciting to you?
Well, Moonstones is just another culmination, really, of, this is my industry, is what I do. It's what I'm passionate for, quite obviously. So, I watch trends, and I go to New York, where my brother lives, and we jump around New York City and look for what's hot. And back so many years ago, two things that happened that created Moonstones. One of them is Ming Tsai, Open Blue Ginger in Wellesley, which launched this concept that folks want more urban style, progressive, and unique dining in the suburbs because people no longer want to drive to the city and deal with drinking and driving and finding parking and so on and so forth. So he launched a unique restaurant in the suburbs of Wellesley. That was the first impetus of the thought. And then the second one was tapas dining and lounge dining. People eating at the bar was growing in popularity. Smaller bites, smaller plates, not committing to a protein, potato, and vegetable on a plate, which was so traditional as I was growing up in the business so long ago. So the culmination of all of that, lounge dining, a more progressive environment in the neighborhoods, and global. I love the tapas thing, but I've always been in love with foods of the world. Everybody's got something to offer, and so we go to a Chinese restaurant, but you have to eat Chinese food. If you go to an Italian restaurant, you have to eat Italian food. If you go to a Spanish restaurant, you're going to be eating paella, gambas al ajillo, but it's only going to be Spanish food. So I long thought of a restaurant that sort of brought different cuisines together under the same roof. So we offer a Joe burger at Moonstones for a guy who just wants a really great burger and fries with his, draft beer. But we also have a lot of globally inspired small plates for the more adventuresome diner who wants to try a lot of different things and different flavors that are a little bit more exotic or challenging to a typical palate.
Do you think you have like a trademark style or something that defines the food in your restaurants as yours, as part of your creative vision?
Well, chef-driven would be the first thing. I mean, independent, creative, chef-driven is where we come from in our restaurants. Even though Cobblestones serves a buffalo tender, we make that tender sauce from scratch, that hot sauce from scratch, and we cut fresh chicken and we batter them. There's nothing frozen. So I think, I've been yelling at my people, metaphorically yelling, like, it's not just French fries. You can't just fry the fries 5 minutes before, the burger's in the window, because then they're going to sit in the window and they're going to start to get limp and not amazing. And so I think we want all of the food that gets to the customer to be consistent and delicious, whether it's a French fry or it's a bravas, patatas bravas, which is the Spanish version of French fries.
Yeah. So you say you're going to New York looking for ideas, but I get the sense in your writing that you're also going to Europe and you're going other places. Is that just because I'm seeing it in the writing? Or are you really looking around the world for ideas?
Oh, I don't necessarily go around the world looking for ideas, but our success and our amazing people have created the opportunity for me to travel more in the last few years as I've grown older. So we go on vacation, and I don't think that we're much different than anyone else who visits Spain or Italy or France.
Yeah. So when you go on vacation, are you like, you wake up in the morning and you're immediately thinking, I need to go find some interesting restaurants, I'm looking for ideas? Are you immediately on? Or are you
yeah.
Okay, so you're not like, oh, I just want to relax and lie on the beach today. You're just like looking for that next idea.
No. Well. First of all, lying and relaxing is not in my lexicon. So it just doesn't work. I tried, but I can't lie on the beach and relax. I can be on the beach, but I'm thinking about what we're doing next. And usually, what we're doing next is going to end up going out for drinks and dinner. And I am always, no matter who I'm with, family, friends, I'm almost always the guy that somebody says, "Where are we going for dinner tonight?" You know, and I love researching the different books that you get where you are as to what you should visit, and trying to find out where we might find something we've never seen before, a different way of doing things. It's a passion, it's a career. So, but it's fun. That's what I get. That's research and development. I've been joking about that for years, Doug. We travel, and I'm in charge of research and development because everything we do, it's also a tax write-off, which is a nice little advantage.
So, say just within the past year, have you found in your travels outside of the Merrimack Valley any places that really blew you away, and why? Did you see any ideas or any concepts that just opened your eyes or just really excited you?
Well, the last couple of years, we've been focusing on the new concepts. So I really say that any pointed research for the last couple of years has been targeted towards the direction the industry is going. So in New York, we found a couple of places that no one else, they might not be worthy of mention other than that they were great places. But my wife Frida is one place in New York that does a really sort of progressive but comfort menu that's fast to pick up. So you can sit down and be eating within 10 minutes, but the food is really great. That was sort of a memorable spot. And a number of small places in New York. And we went to Portugal just recently. But no, the names of any restaurants where I would send somebody directly wouldn't come to mind at the moment. I'd have to think about it. Or check my notes.
So,
go ahead.
So Lou is here, and Lou always has some interesting questions for the guests. So do you have anything you wanted to ask Scott?
I've got a couple.
Okay, all right.
Let's just spend a second on this, Scott, because I don't think you've let this answer off the leash enough, given your personality. And I want to hear a more fine point to this answer. The Beatles had the White Album. The Beach Boys had Pet Sounds. If you're going to open a restaurant, commercial success isn't the priority. You just are going to do it for the art of it. What's the restaurant you want to open? What does it look like? Where is it? What does it serve?
Oh, man. What's my ideal restaurant? Is that the question?
Yeah, you're going to open one just for you. You're going to do it as an art form. This is going to be your masterpiece. You don't really care if it's commercially successful because, Scott, you're independently wealthy. Everything's fine. What's this restaurant look like?
It's multi-experiential, to quote one of the people that work for the consultant that we worked with to create Stone Social. It's a bigger version of Stone Social because Stone Social really is, at this moment, where my passion was. So it would have an area where folks who just wanted to come in and wear headphones and work on their computer and drink, whether it be cappuccino or a really good glass of Tempranillo. There'd be a corner for those folks, but in the back there would be a shuffleboard table and couches, and the music would be elevated a little bit more towards, rock and roll bar. It would be very social. I like, my ideal restaurant would bring everybody together. There'd be nobody in the car who would say, nah, that's not my groove. Everybody in the car like, oh, that place is great. You can get this, you can get that. It's quiet over here, it's raucous over here. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does, and I get what you're looking for there. You also touched upon recently traveling and looking at restaurants. Now, I'm in this position a lot where I'm traveling, I'm in a new town, and I'm trying to pick a restaurant. I have no clue what restaurant to go to. What are the types of ways you pick the restaurants that you go to in an environment that you don't know? You know nothing about these restaurants. How do we pick a good restaurant on the road?
That's a loaded question. But for me, the first thing I do is look at the menu. And, menus tend to, for as creative as we are as an industry, because we are so creative, but we're also not. And the day I realized, and I know that's an opposite statement, but I'll never forget the time that I was in Boston, and Kathy and I were in a neighborhood where there were a lot of restaurants, and we started walking along the street looking for where to eat, and you read the menus in the window, and one of the menus had skate wing on it. And I'd never seen skate wing on a menu. And I'm like, holy smokes, skate wing. We walked another block or two. This happened 2 more times. There were 3 restaurants in the same, half-mile square area that had skate wing on the menu. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I look at menus to see something unique, a different approach, something that maybe isn't typical. And then I make sure it's not too big a menu. Because if you're doing something unique and high quality, then the menu isn't going to be overly big, or you can't maintain the quality. It's just those 2 things don't go well together. So those are 2 things I look for in a menu: uniqueness and size. And again, that's just a general question. It was easy to find unique restaurants in Portugal because we don't go to many Portuguese restaurants in America. So you see blood sausage, or they call it morcilla, and seafood stew. Wow, seafood stew with whole crab and whole prawns, like boiled right in there with the rice and the tomatoes. That's fantastic. But then you're in Portugal, you walk a block and you look at the menu, and it's fish stew and it's blood sausage. So so it's unique to me, but not unique to somebody who's living in Portugal.
So if you put skate wing tacos on the menu this week, can you call them the 495 tacos?
Listen, if I put skate wing on the menu now, it would be unique because it was a trend that did not last.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about. Remember back, I don't know how many years ago.
I've had skate. Yeah.
Every menu had mozzarella sticks on it. And I'm just like, I've never been impressed by a fried hunk of mozzarella cheese. Just like, I get it. It tastes crispy and crunchy and gooey, but they were on every single menu, no matter where you went. And look, we're guilty too. You give people what they want. To a fault, I try to introduce people to things that they just don't take off, and also to the detriment of my staff. Because they're like, oh brother, here he goes again. Like they told me blood sausage when I got back from Portugal. They said blood sausage would never sell, and they were right. We tried it, and people were like, no, thank you, not interested.
I'm a sucker in restaurants, and the restaurants I love the most have all the things that you might want, all the things that you're used to, all the comfort food and that type of thing. But there's a couple dishes where the chef takes off a little bit. And almost invariably, you look at a dish and go, I never would have put those tastes together. I want to know what that's like. And those are the restaurants invariably that I love because they always give you something interesting to look at.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Those chefs are a dime a dozen. I'm sorry. What's the opposite of a dime a dozen?
1 in a million.
1 in a million. Thank you. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Those chefs are few and far between. Who actually. There are a whole lot of folks out there who call themselves chefs and do a wonderful job managing a kitchen and putting out really good food. But there are very few who come up with original ideas and recognize what it takes to put flavors and textures together in a way that they resonate. They make people like mouths drop open and go, wow. Moonstone Chef is one of those guys, and I'm not saying that because he works for me. I just recognized his talent before he was in charge, and almost had to talk him into becoming the head chef because he really didn't want it because it's not where his mind was. He just likes creating food because guess what? That's his skill set. He was born with it.
What's his name?
His name is Adam Hervue. And he is, I don't want to tout him too much because I don't want anybody coming and trying to steal him, to be honest with you, but he is an amazing, amazing talent. But he said from day one, like, I'll do it, but I don't want to be in charge of the administrative stuff. I don't want to be holding meetings. It's not what I do. And it's true. I'm a guy who can hold a great meeting, but I can't take colors and textures and flavors and put them together. I can recreate what somebody else has done and make it beautiful, but it's not going to come from my brain. And so that's what makes him really special, and those folks really special. There's not many of them.
So I have one last question for you. And I know it's early on as we're facing this crisis. Are you beginning to see any shift in tastes as a result of what's going on? In other words, are people more interested in comfort food? Are they becoming adventurous? Like, how is this changing what people want?
Well, Doug, it's been a very short amount of time to actually have data, but we have anecdotal evidence that yes, and also we have a point of comparison. When 2007 and 2008 happened, and you know what? When you talk about times like these, desperate times, there's lots of great things that come out of them at the end when you look back and say, what do we get from this? And I think that what I love at times like this is to look to see this is when originators and innovators rise to the top. This is when people come up with new creative ways of thinking and doing things because they have to, but then at the end of the day, it might actually be revolutionary for the future. So back in 2007 and 2008, the word on the street was people want comfort. They want to be comforted. They want to be hugged because they're scared. And so I think this mirrors that in a lot of ways. Not to mention people are sheltering in place. So, they're home with their families and their loved ones. And so, yes, the family-style meals that we immediately switched to, not because I thought of it, somebody else did mention it. I'm like, oh, my God, that's genius. Let's take what we have and turn it into a family-style offering, has definitely resonated. Folks are saying thank you on social media. That's exactly what we need right now. So yeah, I don't think there's too many people wanting adventurous at the moment, which works against Moonstones. So Moonstones is struggling to become relative to today with our menu and repackaging and reimagining how we speak to people, because we were more adventurous and more daring, and right now, yeah, people I think want to feel safer.
Yeah. So, anyways, I know you're eager to get to work on your column. I know it's calling for you. So, so thanks so much for being on the 495. Really, really appreciate it. I look forward to reading. I'll see it before other people. What you write for May and how you're going to kind of digest all this, and I eagerly anticipate hearing more what's going on in your world.
Well, thank you, Doug. I will get that done. Why don't you throw a real deadline at right now, like really a real deadline?
Well, it's 1:30 now. You think you can get something by 5:30? No, I'll let you work out deadlines with. No, I'm not going to do that on the air. But sooner it's. I sort of say it this way: we kind of have soft deadlines, and then we kind of have like hard deadlines, and then there's the sort of like where your heart begins to beat a little bit faster. Like, when are we going to see this piece by so and so? And we start to lose sleep, and I would say we're getting into the starting to lose sleep territory. So if you want us to rest easy and have peaceful nights, send us a column.
Well, you know what? Congratulations to you. If you can rest these days, that's beautiful. I will do my part. So I'll jump on.
I appreciate that.
All right, pal. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right, Scott. Thanks.
And everybody out there, good luck and be safe, and we'll get through this. I know we will.
Right on.
Take care.
All right. All right. That's it. We'll be back next week on the 495.
Promised, huh? Scott's an interesting guy.
He's a very interesting guy. And once again, every issue he'll be in Merrimack Valley Magazine. You can check out his writing there.